So why are people reacting so poorly to it? And I think there's kind of like aside from the fact that it's a top-down declaration of like, we now, Nvidia, have decided what these games should look like, which is very reminiscent of Microsoft putting Copilot in Notepad and just like all of this, like everywhere you go, there's just
even more like directly. It's also YouTube doing all of its like AI
summaries everywhere.
Well, the upscaling of videos,
but like on YouTube, because on YouTube they've been like doing the back catalog of like uprising stuff. It's the refusal of tech companies now with generative AI to even allow authenticity to exist.
Butterscotch. Hey everybody, welcome to episode 565 of Coffee with Butterscotch, the weekly podcast for indie game developers. I'm Seth and I'm the games programmer.
I'm Adam's Miscellaneous Programmer.
I'm Sam and I'm their taste.
And we are Butterscotch Shenanigans, and today is March 2020 quick. 320 blaze it, as they say.
You see that.
You know, it's pre-gaming.
So quick, you do it ahead of time.
Start a month early. So today we're going to talk about PAX East, which we will be going to soon. We'll be talking a little bit about how many dudes it currently is in terms of the numbers of its wish lists and what's going on the Steam side and stuff like that. Apparently we got to talk about DLSS 5 because
that's the big one for the day.
People want to talk about it. We'll talk about it. So PAX East, we're going like right after this episode airs because that's when PAX East starts. We'll be just kind of there vibing. We'll be checking Blue Sky. So if anybody messages us and wants to meet up and chat, talk shop, whatever, our Blue Sky handle is at bscotch.net. So this kind of came up just because we used to go to GDC all the time. We used to go all these different things all the time. And ever since COVID, we've been working remote. Sam made some people, and then he's been like, I don't know, raising them or something. So we're all in different places, and things change. Life comes at you fast.
It does.
And the value proposition of stuff like GDC seems to have been going down dramatically, and and so we've just been like, what's the point?
Yeah, but there is one point, which is just being a person, just getting out in the world with your buddies, talking shop, getting away from the screen, bouncing ideas around, meeting people, and it's all intangibles. You can't put a metric on it and be like, here's the ROI of this. But honestly, so many of the people that we know in the industry and the people that we've kept in touch with over the years and business partners and whatever, they came from stuff like this where we went to these different events in person and hung out and had some drinks and just shoot the shit.
Shot the breeze.
And so we're hoping to just go to PAX, chat with some other folks, and just have a good time and just get away from the screens.
Yeah, we're not boozing or anything. We're literally just going to be wandering around.
Just hanging out.
Yeah, but I will have a tablet with how many dudes on it. So, if anybody wants to maybe get a sneak peek of some of the new dudes.
Just don't let the PAX guards see you because they don't like that when you're... I remember from the last time I went to PAX years ago where...
Some guy had a backpack with his game on it. I remember that. So
you didn't pay for a booth. You gotta get out of here.
Well, I'll have my phone. That way it's like it'll just look like I'm showing somebody a picture or something. You gotta be sneaky about it, but we do it. Or also we won't be on the convention floor the whole time. Like we'll be,
that's true,
out around town. So
so if you're gonna be around, reach out and we'll see if we can meet up. Just say hey and. It's just fun talking shop, especially with LudoKit, which if you haven't checked that out, the previous episode is all about LudoKit and our goal for basically easing a lot of the annoying parts of publishing games on Steam and beyond.
Of which there are many.
There are many. There's already a bunch of people who hopped in the Discord, which is awesome. So if you want to check that out, it's discord.gg/LudoKit, I believe. No, it's not.
Just go to ludokit.com. There's
ludokit.com. There's a link.
You can't get branded Discord links until you have like a server with so many, whatever you call them,
people,
diamond things.
Boosts.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll be. That's part of the other fun thing about going to these shows is we always talk shop with people, right? But now there's we get to learn other interesting things, and see where we can potentially.
And we can we can do more than just say, oh, cool, like here's our experience, there's your experience.
Right.
Give us your advice, here's our advice. Now we can also be like, ooh, we can maybe solve that problem, right?
Mhm.
For you and for us, right? For everybody.
Yep.
So yeah, there's a kind of leverage goes up for everybody for the just how stuff gets done, which is
It
well,
has
feels
been
like
it has been cool seeing, because we have, you know, a handful of people, maybe 20-ish something people in the Discord
Mhm.
around there, and even with just this like this little initial burst of people, there's been these conversations. People are like, "Hey, I'm trying to do this thing. Does LudoKit handle that?" And I was like, "Yeah, it does." And like, "Oh my god, please,
Can I get let me
Yeah.
let me
Like,
in.
or
Let me in.
it does or is planned. One of the two.
Yeah, because well, I mean, as we talked about in the last episode, the big goal of LudoKit is like take something that you probably didn't think about as a big problem, and then once you bump into it, you're like, "Oh my god, this is a fucking nightmare," you know. And then LudoKit's like, "No problem, buddy." Yeah,
Turn it into the kind of problem it seems like it should be. You know, like that's
yeah, which is not a big
ultimately the goal.
deal. Yeah, and then otherwise, let's talk a little bit about how many dudes. Sam, you want to give us a how many dudes by the numbers?
Yeah, how many dudes by the dude numbers? So basically, we finally hit like what I would call like our real doldrums point in how many dudes. There have still been things going on, but still some videos here and there that have spiked things up. But it looks like our sort of like resting really low wish list point is around like 350 to 400 per day, which again is like that's 4x what Crashlands was when it was just kind of chilling. And this is by resting low, I mean like we've had like about 5 or 6 days of that, and then in between there's been still some large spikes up to
It
around
randomly
1,000.
spikes. But
Yes, as like influencer stuff happens. But yesterday was our lowest since December 16th, so since the demo launched. But it was still 350, which is still again insane to me.
I'll take it.
I'll take it. Crazy. We're also trying a little influencer push on the China side this weekend, so I'll report back on that and kind of see how that goes if that does anything. And just as a really high level note, we've been working our buns off making new dudes and stuff, but we finally decided on the scoop of how many dudes.
How many dudes are going to be in this?
How many dudes? Yeah. And originally we were planning to just double the number that was present in the demo. So around like 32, 34. But as we got going with it, we're like, oh, we basically found a rough number where it seemed like there would be, as Seth put it, the goal is to make it so, well, the game launches, there's so many dudes that you're like, wow, that's a lot of dudes.
Might be, if people review the game negatively because they're like, there's too many dudes.
Too many dudes.
That's the target. We want people. Yep. That's the only complaint people can have is, honestly, there's too much. There's too much in this game.
So we're gonna go for 42 dudes. So there's like gonna be 7 dudes per dude family. There's 6 dude families, and we are closing on that rapidly. We've added a bunch of them this week, and it's been really fun cranking them out. And it's one of the things where like every time we start adding a new one, or even when we scoped out that like, okay, how many really are we going to finish this off with? Seth was like, well, do you think we'll be able to make that many that are interesting and balanced and yada yada? And it's so funny because every time we start diving into one, it's like improv. There's always something in the box. There's always some weird shit we're doing there. It's definitely been the case that as we've done more of them, they get a little more complicated, right? Because you have to go one step further than you did.
Literally, like some of the earlier dudes, vampire heals himself when he deals damage. It's like, all right, well, pretty straightforward, And now we've got like we had
the hacker.
We got a mummy, the hacker. Yeah, the hacker. We're still. It's a weird one. We're kind of iterating on that one still. But we talked about the alien a while back. That has like a tractor beam and it like whips dudes around. There's all these things that we're adding where at first, I think for me one of the design goals with it is that when somebody reads a tooltip for a dude that they haven't seen before, and then they see it and they're just like, but why?
Yeah.
What would I do with that? And then as they
the
play
fact
with
that
it
it exists means that
it's
there's
for
something good and interesting about it. Right?
So
the idea that you can trust that like you'll look at a thing and be like, I can't see how that could be what I would want. But knowing that it must somehow be something you would want is a very fun
So as you play with that dude and you learn more about the game and you see the relics and what the relics open up for how that dude works and stuff, then you're like, oh, and then you start to think about all the different combinations of which there, 42 dudes, there's gonna be something like
800,000
something thousand team comps. And because we got, like last episode, we talked about the ensemble mode where you can actually choose what your team is, you'll be able to try all 800-something thousand team comps, right? Up until we add one or two more dudes, and then there's millions of team comps because it's a combinatorial explosion.
Yeah, we were laughing. Basically, if we add one dude family post-launch and like an update, then it's going to, I think it goes over, does it go over 1 billion or is it over 2 million or something? I can't remember. It's the number, because it's one of those combinatorial things. It just explodes.
Well, it was that like with 30, if we're going for like 36 dudes, there'd be like 360,000 something combinations of teams. But just by adding, 6 more dudes, then it more than doubles the number of teams, and then the rate of growth goes up and up. Now, are all of those teams sensible? No, certainly not. But it's
a
fun.
Shocking number of them are.
It's fun to it's fun to come up with ideas and try stuff. And we're also we're getting kind of so weird with some of these dudes that some of them definitely will just kind of work against each other. Like if you put them together and it's like, oh, like this dude's trying to make this one thing happen, and this other dude works best if that thing definitely doesn't happen, right? And so there's some that kind of bump up against each other, but that's just part of learning the game, is figuring out not just what works well together, but what doesn't work well.
Yeah, because you would basically want most things to like be fine together, right? And some things, and a rare set of things, to be particularly good or particularly bad, right?
Yeah.
So that on average, you're like, you just kind of figure stuff out, and like anything can kind of work. But I think the fun thing too about stuff that like really doesn't work, and allowing for that to exist, that just gives people a new challenge set, which is like, how far can you get with
how do you make this
really bad comp, right? Like,
yeah. So it's been pretty fun, and we added 5 dudes just this past week. Now we're moving ahead into some UI updates and stuff like that. But yeah, we're closing in on the full scope. Still no idea.
What about enemies and bosses? Is that also changing?
Haven't scoped that yet, but
there will be more.
There will be more.
Oh.
That's all we know.
Is the idea sort of like you're rounding out the whole dude set?
Yeah,
and then going back to the
because also the enemies, they're there as a counter to the dudes. And
so if you know what all the dudes are doing, then you can have more fun.
And there's also kind of an iterative loop where some of the dudes will end up getting reworked as we go, kind of depending on what happens. So as an example, we during the demo we reworked the ghost and the ninja super hard, and the wizard a bit, and then over this dev cycle since then, we've reworked the zombie and the Franken dude. The Franken dude still does the get giant as more things get knocked out thing, but
the rule got clarified a little bit.
So we kind of, as we learn more about what's cool and interesting about these dudes, and what, especially as we listen to players who talk about certain aspects of that dude, we're like, I hate this, like this particular relic, I never take it because of whatever. Then we kind of reworked those things to figure out how to make them make more sense. So even, I think by the time the game comes out, even the dudes that you're super familiar with from the demo, something will be at least a little bit different about them. And in some cases, some things will be very different. It's been going pretty good, and very happy with the, even with the kind of, as Sam was saying, the down period where there's not like anything big going on. Very happy with the wish list rate. So
it's great.
And I think it's approaching the wish list of Crashlands 2.
Yes, we're up at 197,000 outstanding wish lists. So it's not just ads. That's like the ones we actually have. They're chilling. And that is now 7,000 more than Crashlands 2 had the day before it launched. So we did it. That was the biggest concern we had, was like, can we somehow compress all that marketing into like a 6 to 9 month window? And apparently, you can. So
in this case, we could.
In this case, we did.
We could.
Yeah. Don't know if we can do it again. But we'll certainly try.
We'll assume that we cannot. But
all right.
We
got to talk about DLSS.
Let's get into that.
All right. So first off,
what are these letters?
I'll frame this conversation. First off, DLSS 5 has been in the news all week because Nvidia announced this new technology for their 5090 RTX cards, claiming
these are video cards for gamers, basically.
It's what renders the game. And a 5090 is expensive as fuck, and nobody has one. Okay. So, so Nvidia comes out there saying we have this new, basically it's a setting that you can use in certain games that work with it. And it uses this magical technology to just make the game look better. Okay. So that's kind of where it started this week. And there was this huge backlash from all directions about this announcement. So let's kind of take a step back and talk about, all right, what the fuck is DLSS even? And why are people so mad about this?
Because in theory, if someone says, hey, if you use this piece of hardware in your machine, it will just make all of the graphics on every game better, right? It's actually kind of what's been happening always with graphics cards, right? The reason why you get a new one is because then you can allow
better graphics.
Yeah, you have better graphics. You let ray tracing now exists in your games, or all this other fancy stuff, especially on like a AAA scale, right? A lot of those games do look better because basically your hardware is able to do more intense computational stuff, to do better lighting, better material stuff, whatever. And so that has been the case. This has always been the case. Like the whole shtick with getting a better graphics card was so that your graphics look better. So why is this bad?
So DLSS is kind of a controversial thing. It stands for Deep Learning Super Sampling, and this is the 5th iteration of it. I can't remember when it first popped up, but I'm pretty sure it's been, I don't know, like a decade maybe, that some aspect of it has been around. And essentially what it does is, so think about like if you want to render a game at a high resolution, you're on a 4K monitor and you're like, I want to see all the details. Well, if you're running a 4K monitor compared to an HD monitor, so 1080p versus 4K, then it's 4 times the number of pixels, which means your graphics card has to work 4 times as hard to process all those teeny tiny little details and make the game run. So you could get that higher resolution, but at the cost of performance. You'd have a lower frame rate and the game just wouldn't run as well. So that's where DLSS comes in. So what DLSS is supposed to allow you to do is you can essentially down-res the game to a lower resolution and even potentially a lower frame rate. And then DLSS uses deep learning, uses a machine learning algorithm with a specific tensor processor that's like specifically just for this on these Nvidia cards. And what it'll do then is it'll use machine learning to upscale that lower resolution image of the game up to the resolution that you want. And it will also interpolate frames in between to make a smoother frame rate.
So basically it's cheaper to do that computationally.
Right. So you can
the whole thing.
Yeah. So you can theoretically, like by tweaking some game settings and turning this thing on, you can get high resolution and high frame rate through the magic of AI.
Well, so what's interesting about this is like there's like the machine learning aspect of it, which is it's not the current AI. You know what I mean? Like it's not. That's the old one. It is, but
it's all machine learning at the end of the day. But
so basically,
remember, machine learning. All of this is machine learning. All of this is machine learning. Machine learning is just
we trained on a bunch of data and
made a statistical model that you can now feed new data into and get data back out that based on the model kind of looks like.
Well, what's interesting is it's that sort of filling in the gaps, allowing there to be gaps and filling them in is actually it's interesting because it's sort of analogous to how human vision works, right? Which is that your own vision is not essentially maximally super sampled.
Yeah, what you see in your brain is not what you see with your eyes.
Correct. So sensation and perception are 2 very different processes, right? And so there's plenty of those things where it's like, if you wherever you're looking, humans have like a 3-degree cone of vision, right? Or for focal vision, and that's where like all the details are, all the colors and everything. And then beyond that, your brain's actually just filling it in. Like you don't have color actually.
Well, and even that too, even the part that you're actually focusing on, like the idea that you can look at something and like see that there's a corner, right?
Yes.
A corner is actually a 3-dimensional concept your brain maps onto it, right? Like as in like identifying something, like you're not just seeing, like it feels like you're just seeing the stuff that's out there, right? But what's actually happening is that your brain is overlaying.
Your brain is doing DLSS
on top.
Yes,
of it.
it's exactly. So it's an interesting thing. So it works kind of similar, right?
Yeah. So this has historically been a fairly non-controversial technology because up until DLSS 4, like all the way through the recent iteration of it, the goal of it was sharper graphics, smoother frame rates. So if you take an image that's 1080p and you upscale it, And if you imagine that you've just like added gaps between all the pixels, right?
Typically what happens when you scale an image up, it gets blurry, right?
Right. And so it's basically what it would have to do to make this work is it would have to kind of guess at what those missing pixels should be to sort of complete
And
the
historically,
image.
like we've always had ways of doing this because upscaling and downscaling are the same. Downscaling, you throw pixels away, have to try to make it still look good. Upscaling, you put space in between the existing pixels and have to fill them in somehow. And you have to figure out what is the logic I use to fill them in so that the end result doesn't just look blurry, right? And we've been doing this kind of stuff for a jillion years to varying degrees of effectiveness, limited by the fact that you're making it up, right? There is no data there. There's not a right answer, right?
Right. But again, the goal, and even with the frame rate smoothing, it's like if your game is running at 30 FPS and you want to see it at 60 FPS, then the graphics card would say, like, okay, I have 2 frames, different points in time. I need to figure out what the frame in between them would be and kind of guess at that and fill it in. So the goal of all of it up to this point has been essentially fill in the gaps.
Yep.
Like make a best guess and fill in the gaps. So DLSS 5 is different. DLSS 5 is saying we're going to make the game look better.
Yeah. Well, I would say
I'm putting that in quotes. Better.
We're going to make it look different.
We're going to make it look like our idea of what better is.
Yeah. And I think if you think about the overall solution here is to move from the space where you're just like, okay, we're going to do our best to, as you said, fill in the gaps, to we're going to do our best to create the information that was quote unquote lost.
Missing.
Right? Those are different goals. And if you're trying to create the information that was lost, again, you can't do it. That's not possible. So now you're in the generative space to create data that was lost.
Right. So they're saying DLSS 5 is now going to use generative AI, which that's the terminology that they're using, to essentially add effects, lighting, wrinkles to people's faces, add all kinds of details that were never there, ever. Like the game
They're
never
not in the
had
geometry. There's no shader that supports it.
It's not like if you,
there.
because in the past it's like, okay, let's say you had hardware good enough to run the game at 4K and at a high resolution, at a high frame rate. The details of the game are all there. The artists and the developers put those details in there. And what DLSS used to do was guess at what those details are. Right now, what DLSS 5 is doing is saying, "Fuck that, fuck those details.
Here's what
we're going to add stuff.
be.
We're just going to start adding stuff." And so this is where the backlash is, which is Nvidia posted a bunch of different before and after shots of different characters and different scenes from certain games. Notably, most of the scenes they posted were minimal movement or things being pretty still, because it turns out there's a lot of artifacting and other problems that kind of happen as
it would have to be. This is
get more complicated.
It's remarkable that they can, just from a technology standpoint, it's remarkable that they could do this in real time in any meaningful way on device. Because again, generative stuff is slow as shit because of how large the models are and all this kind of stuff, right? Yeah. So truly incredible technology that it can work at all. Yeah. But just like with a lot of this technology, should we be doing it?
This is where I think things get interesting, because it's like, in the past, before say 2022, whenever we would see stuff about like protein folding AI models, or like, oh, look at this interesting kind of like upscaling technique or whatever, it was always just kind of just a cool thing. We were just like, wow, that's pretty cool.
Just better. You're like, oh, great. It's exciting.
Right? Yeah. But now we live in an era where people are lying to us nonstop about the capabilities of AI tools and then jamming them into products that we use in ways that we don't want. And that's why all of a sudden, like if they had just said like, hey, we're working on this new technique, if they didn't call it, because to me, it's not DLSS.
No, that's something else now.
It's doing something else now, right? Yeah. So if they gave it a different name and they said, this is something that we're working on, we're looking for feedback on it, is this something people want? If so, we'll look into, like making it be a new feature that we can have in our newer cards.
It's a real-time filter is what it is, right? Like
yes. It's as if you put it's as if you put an Instagram or Snapchat filter onto your game. And what I mean by that is like it adapts the same kind of AI generated look that people can tell and don't like, and it changes everything. It's a paint over. It's a paint over.
And people notice stuff like it, for female characters, it tends to like plump up their lips. It'll add like eyeshadow.
Yep.
And also because it's generative AI, which means it has training data. So there's things that it knows about and things that it doesn't know about. So people realize like there's a screenshot of Starfield where this there's this character who he has a haircut where he has no hair on the sides. So it's like fully shaved on the sides, and then it's, has hair on top. And when you turn on DLSS 5, suddenly he's got hair on the sides of his head. It just adds, it's like, I don't know what the fuck that haircut is. I've never seen that before, but adult, like middle-aged men have hair on the sides of their heads. So this guy does too now, right? And
this is where all the controversy comes from with this then, because now this is no longer just sort of basically filling in the gaps from a technical perspective to make sure that the thing that you made as a dev is able to be seen by a person on like kind of whatever hardware they're on, right?
Yeah,
and
it's
able to
basically
see as possible.
it's trying to ensure that the match, right? Very specifically, the match between your intent and the experience because of the limitations of people's hardware, where they wouldn't otherwise get a match, they would get a degraded experience versus your intent.
Right. And now this is jumping into just saying, fuck your intent. Here's just a filter, a filtered look at whatever it was that you put in here. And it's interesting to me because it's like I think what was so fascinating is the fact that they use it on all these hyper realistic game models anyways. Like basically most of the games they showed were these AAA games that have, they're big budget titles that have,
except for Hogwarts Legacy, which looked fucking weird when they put the filter on it, because it's like kind of cartoonish characters, and then they suddenly they still had kind of like cartoonish proportions, and the way that they moved, they felt more like video game characters, the way they moved and the way their faces animated. But suddenly they just had like way
wrinkles.
Too detailed faces.
Yep. Put wrinkles on shit, but it basically does this thing where now it's just changing the shape of all these things, right? And it's just an artist, I guess when you're working on something like this, you're not like, let me make this character and then let a tech company just decide what it actually looks like.
Well, I think the position that Nvidia seems to be taking here is the goal of video game graphics is realism, and the limits of people's capability to deliver on realism is the gap we're trying to fill, right? And so the idea there's anything that is less realistic than it could be is basically a problem, right?
Yeah.
That hey, we can solve.
It's not about...
it's identifying the wrong thing, which is like the classic tech bro shit in general, but especially the AI stuff, right? It's like just saying like, yeah, look, I understand the problem that you all are facing, which is that you want realism and it's impossible to get full realism because people are making stuff and people can't make things truly fully realistic, especially with hardware limitations. But hey, we can solve that. We can just fix realism, right?
So this is fascinating to me. The backlash to this is really fascinating to me because to me it kind of represents a boiling over point and just how pissed off people are about just what is happening with AI, right?
Well, and I do want to mention that before you get into the specifics there, that I didn't notice either, which was that apparently the teams that made the games that were shown off, it's like the Capcom team who made Resident Evil, did not know. The art people did not know that this was going to be happening. Like live.
But what we don't know is, did the executives know?
I'm sure
that's possible. Right?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, and so this is going from trying to guess at what the intent of the art team was and fill in the missing pixels as you upscale, into trying to guess at what is the gap between the art team's skills and what their vision is, and then trying to fill that gap instead.
It's kind of like, I don't know, it's like metaphorically like in the United States, medical insurance companies being like, yeah, the doctor said you need this, but we think differently.
That's true.
Yeah, we think differently. It's like the wrong person is making that decision, right?
Yeah, and so this is also in a people don't react this badly to something so much because this is a setting that you can just not use as a gamer, right? So why are people reacting so poorly to it? And I think there's kind of like aside from the fact that it's a top-down declaration of like, we now Nvidia have decided what these games should look like, which is very reminiscent of Microsoft putting Copilot in Notepad and just like all of this, like everywhere you go, there's
even more like directly. It's also YouTube doing all of its like AI
summaries everywhere.
Or the upscaling of videos.
But like on YouTube, because on YouTube they've been doing the back catalog of like uprising stuff. It's the refusal of tech companies now with generative AI to even allow authenticity to exist. They're basically taking
exactly. Yes.
Because AI is all about inauthenticity as like that's its purpose, right?
Well, and it's also about ignoring the creative intent of the
and
of
forcefully
humans,
overriding,
you know?
right? So that nothing authentic is allowed to exist anymore. Nothing. The idea that like something is old, therefore it's in low resolution, you're like, that's not allowed. It has to be in higher resolution.
Let it look the way that it looked because it's cool.
That's what it is.
And also like seeing older games where, you know, if you're seeing like old like Grand Theft Auto running on a PS2, like it's incredible. It's incredible what they were able to do. And how creative they had to be with like the geometry and the textures and the models.
You don't need to run DLSS 5.5 on it or 5 on it. You don't need to. We don't need to do that. We don't need to get into that. You know.
Yeah. And so there's just this. I think it's kind of like the public reaction to this to me is kind of the same type of reaction somebody would have if they learned that like their partner used ChatGPT to write their wedding vows, right? Which is like if the partner says like, well, I had an idea of what I wanted to say, but I couldn't express it very well. So I just used ChatGPT to do it, which is what people say when they do shit like this, right? And it's like, fuck that. It would have been better had you stumbled your way through it and kind of awkwardly, but authentically, you know, tried to deliver something.
Authentic
meaningful.
clumsiness is a million years better for the human experience than inauthentic beauty.
Slop, you know?
Well, even before you get into the fact that like a lot of the stuff that we're talking about here is then saying is actually stylistic choices, right? So it's we're not even talking about clumsy things. We're not talking about clumsy application of skill in terms of these artists. For else,
it could be also, right?
Could be also, but
it doesn't.
We're talking about. Yeah, it's like.
Well, but in a way we are because it's Nvidia declaring that what the artist did wasn't good enough. And they're saying like, we're going to use AI to make it to finish the job for you. We're going to.
I guess what is the confluence of factors that you think? Because you've been mentioning like you think it's a more holistic moment break for people about.
Yeah. Well, so there's just kind of the general ecosystem where everywhere people go, they are now just being bombarded with inauthentic garbage, right? And this should have been just Nvidia coming out and being like, look, we got DLSS 5. It's faster and better now, right? But that's not what it is. They're like, now it's different, and it's different in a way that is exactly like how everything else in your life is different, which is it's inauthentic garbage, right? So there's that, but also there's the economic picture of this, right? Which is like this tech apparently at the moment requires 2 5090 RTX cards.
Which again, back to the idea of like, it's remarkable this technology can work at all, given what it's doing. Because generative stuff is extremely expensive. So like, I was blown away by the idea that this could happen like on a consumer device at all. But the fact that consumer device is 2 of the most insane graphics cards that exist in the market. Right. Why are we doing this?
Yeah. Right. What's the price? Yeah. So,
and I was just like, if they had just treated this as a cool tech demo of like, look what our technology can do. Right.
Yeah. So each of these is like $1,500, right? So it's like you need like $3,000 to get the graphics card
to remove authenticity from the games you play.
Yeah,
right?
And also if you have 2 5090 cards, the amount of like power consumption and cooling your computer needs, again.
What are you running, like a 1,500 watt power supply?
You're just like, again, and it's just reminiscent of literally everything that's going on in the economy, which is like people with way too much fucking money and bad ideas are just slurping up all the hardware, all the power, all the opportunities, and pretending like this is a benefit for everybody, when in reality, it's nothing for nobody, right? It delivers money to certain people and no value to everybody else. And so I think it's just the fact that people are reacting
job loss and higher prices to everybody else, right?
Yeah, okay.
Energy prices are through the roof, right? They're going to be even higher because of stupid shit. So it's like, now you got, okay, if you want to do this, buy $3,000 worth of our new graphics cards, but also, you're running a power supply twice as intense.
And they're not even making graphics cards for gamers anymore anyway, because they're all going to data centers.
Yeah,
so like,
which Nvidia has come out and said, like, we don't really give a shit about making stuff for gamers.
It's not where the money is. So of course they don't.
And then of course, there's the RAM shortage. There's like hardware prices are going through the roof because of all this AI stuff. So it's basically people turning around and saying like, so you're telling me that all this money that you Nvidia are getting by kind of ruining everything for everybody, and then you're spending all this money to buy up all the hardware, making hardware more expensive for me, so you can train up AI models for your 5090 cards that I can't afford, to make my games look
Like this?
right. It's just like the announcement is just like such a perfect encapsulation of just how pissed off everybody's getting about all this
and
stuff.
how out of touch the C-suite tech bro class is with what's actually going on, what people need, what people care about, and what all of this is for. Again, it's like it's creating solutions to completely misidentified problems.
Yeah.
At
Problems that nobody
enormous
has.
cost to everybody.
Yeah. And then there's the lying angle, which is
There's always the lying. They
which
just can't
is
stop.
as we're all familiar with, like whenever a new AI model comes out, a new product comes out, it is only marketed with lies. Like literally nothing that they say about what it can do, it can do. And in many cases, they'll announce it and they'll show it doing something amazing. And then they never even release it at all because it turns out it never existed. Right? So in this case, the way that they talked about it is they were like, DLSS 5 is doing something that in the past was impossible, which was
that's true.
They're like, it's not just looking at the images and interpolating information, it is analyzing the geometry of the scene and the materials and this like the source information of the game itself,
As in it's actually referencing the 3D space.
Right.
Now we don't make 3D games, so I don't know what data gets passed to the graphics card.
Well, I mean,
but
all of the 3D,
all of that.
And the thing is, like on the servers, you'd be like, it's some aspect because like for the graphics card to render the 3D scene,
like you're passing a lot of that information,
right? Yeah. And so on the surface, you'd be like, oh, I guess that makes sense, right? But that means that they would have to train this thing up to be able to take all these billions of points of data from a 3D scene and then map that onto what a improved version of the final image would look like and somehow make
and where is the training data for that? That's
in
not
real
a thing
time
that exists. Right.
And it turns out none of that is true.
Yeah, it can't be.
So they're basically just saying that because if it's using a picture of the 3D generated scene, this is my guess, marketing wise.
Yep.
It is technically true if you're using a picture of the scene that it is using the geometry that is in the scene. You know what I mean? Like it's like but that's just like saying that's just what it always does.
And
anyway.
I can see how you could use. I can see how like there might be a piece of that that's true, which is the idea that because part of the problem with applying a filter to an image, right? Is in the same way I was saying earlier, like when you see a corner, your brain is mapped the concept of corner onto that, right?
Yeah.
But the corner is not something you actually see, right? And that's the problem with putting a robot on an image is that when we look at an image, we see a face, we see separate objects and that kind of stuff, right? But that's not there in the data, right? It's just, there's just a bunch of pixels of different colors and that's it. And so something has to be able to identify that, these are boundaries of like objects. And this is a face of an object that is facing this particular direction and that kind of stuff, right? That data is in 3D model data. That data is potentially, depending on how stuff gets passed on to a graphics card, because the way that 3D stuff works is you have polygons and normals, and the normal tells you what direction like the face of the polygon is looking, basically, right? And so in theory, you have the data you need from a 3D source to know like the boundaries of things and what is an object and what is whatever. You don't know what objects they are. You don't know that this is a face.
Yeah, it would have to figure out which part of this 3D model is a face, if any.
Yeah, because that's definitely not in the data.
If it was respecting the underlying geometry, though, because I've seen stuff where they say that, like, I mean, so not, again, that's a weird thing to say because it is then filtering it and changing it, right?
Oh, yeah,
so
it's not
like,
respecting anything. Yeah. But
as
in like, it might be making use of, would be a more accurate like way of describing it. It might be making use of the fact that has the geometry data there to do a better job of identifying like distinct
It might be,
objects.
but it's not.
Right. Yeah, right. Yeah, isn't like that could be a thing that is happening, right? Or could be a thing that.
But it literally is not.
It's not. It's literally doing. It's taking image by image. It's just looking at the 2D image output and slapping a filter.
Which makes sense because that is what the system was doing before, right? So we're talking about
that's how
previously the upscaling.
It's how graphics card works. What a graphics card does is it takes pixel information with some amount of like geometrical information, right? and then does math on it on a per pixel basis. That's what it does, right?
Yep.
That's what it'll always do. That's just how it works, right? So there are limits to that, which is that you can't have all the information that you would want. You can't be like, these pixels are a face. That's not a concept. Right? You can't have that.
Yeah,
right?
but once it's fully rendered as a 2D image, then you can kick it over to some kind of machine learning algorithm.
Yeah, that can be like, ooh, this part looks like a face.
You know?
Yeah, right. Yeah, that can happen afterwards, but you're not getting that from the source.
It's not coming from the source. Yeah. So this whole thing is basically just kind of like a big watershed of, it's easy to look at it and be like, what's the big fucking deal? Just don't use it. Just don't buy a 5090 and don't turn on DLSS 5.
Or to treat it as a tech demo, because what it is doing, if they treat it just as a tech demo, if they just said this is showcasing just how powerful these cards are, right? It's a stupid way to do it, but like it's hard to show how powerful a card is, right? We all know how expensive generative AI is, and they were like, look, we can even put generative AI, real-time generative AI on these cards, right?
Yeah.
And then ideally they would have shown us something that wasn't just, hey, look, we made this better, but something more interesting than that we wouldn't all be mad about, Well,
and again, in a vacuum, this would have been fucking sick. Like if we weren't getting buried by AI slop everywhere that we go, and we had seen this for the first time, where they're like, look, we used deep learning to like add detail to these scenes. People would just be like, oh, that's an interesting kind of novelty.
Yeah, and everybody involved in making video games would still hate it.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. But the fact that all the gamers are pissed off about it, and the gamers are coming to the defense of the developers, which is an interesting situation. Gamers coming in and being like, you're not respecting the developers. You're not respecting the intent of the artists, and you're not respecting the work of the dev teams in what they did, which...
And I think that the fact that it was a surprise to the dev teams that made the stuff that they've demoed with is, to me, just an obvious example of that. Like, the amount of disrespect is tremendous.
Well, that's good. It's good. Like all of it is this is just symbolic, or not symbolic. It's representative of how the whole thing, AI stuff is.
The entire ecosystem,
is the complete disinterest in anybody's wishes, the theft of all of the stuff involved, and the
top-down push to just
the top-down push of like,
stuff.
We know what actually should be happening, and we've decided what should be happening, and whether or not anybody wants that, right? Like it's just such a clear, and as I said, as you couple that with all the rest of the stuff that's going on around, everyone's tired.
We're all tired.
Not? I don't know. Yeah, just make better products and let us buy them and quit fucking. But
I think actually another way to think about this too, like, so there's all of that part, right? But I think another interesting sort of facet of this is the idea that, because we've talked a lot about how realism, and you see this also too, and lots of recent discussions about games. This idea that like we kind of hit a point where realism doesn't seem
people don't give a shit
worthwhile
anymore.
Objective, right? Because there was a period of time, I mean, until very recently, where so much of what AAA games were competing on was like, look at this extra realism we got. Like, look at this foliage, look at these faces, look at the way these characters' mouths move when they're talking, right? Like, we kept on getting increasing amounts of fidelity, so that it could feel like the games you were playing were like realer and realer and realer, right? It's been a while now where we kind of hit a point where there's just the diminishing returns where nobody really cares.
It's like a dog chasing a car, where it's like when we were really far away from realism. Like I remember like the jump from Half-Life to Half-Life 2.
Amazing.
Right? And it's like,
staggering.
Wow, this is incredible, right? But as things get more realistic, year by year by year, you realize that it never mattered.
It doesn't mean
actually. It didn't make
also,
the games
honestly,
better.
Half-Life 2, which was 2004. To me, is already representative. Like,
that's peak. Don't go beyond that.
You don't need to go beyond.
You don't need to go beyond that.
Everything we've done more than that is like is cool technology, but I don't need that in games.
It doesn't make anything better.
I think the interesting point there is that like you're chasing after like the graphics trend or whatever else, right? But the larger trend in the background, of course, has been stuff like Roblox or whatever else, where it's like
Fortnite.
It's like there's a stylization, and then people not giving a shit about the graphics.
Nintendo never gave a shit and still doesn't, right?
Well, honestly, we're seeing that too. Like, we spent so much of our dev time in Crash Bandicoot 2 was on visual. Visual, like trying to like really punch up the quality of like using all these shaders and all these post-processing effects and different animation techniques that we had never done before. And so much of the dev time went into trying to push that direction.
Oh yeah.
And you know, the response to it, people are like, wow, this looks so much better, but it didn't actually like change the game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But then we, with how many dudes, like, I don't know, fuck it, just like 2-3 frames per dude,
6
just
colors.
keep it, 6 colors. We keep the game super simple, and it turns out you didn't need all that stuff.
Yeah, and there's like, but there's
it's cool to look at
it too.
but,
Yeah, it's because and I think that's different than like the realism thing, right? Because the artistic vision of Crashlands 2,
it is super
to me,
stylized and cartoony and all that.
Yeah, and also that was important for what Crashlands 2 is, and that's an expression of artistic intent and value, right? Realism is not that. How you deliver on it can be.
But I think the point is
realism as a goal is different than like a creative.
Right, but basically the further you push on fidelity of any kind, whether it's stylized or not, the more expensive it is. I think that's the other point, which is like
by a lot,
which is actually you've seeing these rising costs on like the AAA.
Yeah, well, and the costs go up like this, right? But the benefits go up like that.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, benefits go up barely at all, while the costs just get astronomical. And I think you've seen this now with all these AAA productions that just aren't. They're just not moving numbers these days.
Yeah, but that to me, that's the part where it's like it feels like this is kind of like Nvidia. This is like the last like bit of that, right? Where it's like we've all hit the limits of like what realism even means, right? And in AAA games, and we've hit that point where the extra cost of trying to add any more is so much higher than any possible benefit that we're kind of done. We're kind of done like with realism as a goal or increased realism as a goal, and with competing on realism being a thing that games are doing.
Agreed.
And so, but that means there's no room for growth there anymore. If that's a big selling point for AAA games, right? So, hey, the whole idea of like every AAA game, like everything is about needing more growth, right? And if top-down belief is that realism is the thing that people need, that's one of our core goals of making video games. That's a core competitive point. Then hey, if we can make a graphics card that adds that next little bit, you don't even have to do it. We've taken that cost away from you, right?
That would be amazing, right? That's on that.
Yeah.
Like as far as
if it can deliver on what your actual intent is.
Well, I think this is like the final piece of the outrage puzzle, which is this idea that like it's like think about some of the games that have really popped off on Steam in this past month. Mutagenics, Slay the Spire 2.
Mm-hmm.
These don't need top of the line video cards, like they're
stylized. They're made by people.
They're stylized, creative, fun games made by small teams
yeah.
who had a thing that they wanted, who had an idea that they wanted to put out in the world, and they did it, right? And whenever we see announcements from big companies, whether it's AAA, whether it's Microsoft, whether it's Nvidia, whatever, there's now just permanently an underlying sense that whatever they're about to say is going to make things worse for you. Like whatever they're about to say is them trying to find a different way to take something from you, as opposed to deliver something to you that you needed or that you want, right? And so
everyone's out of ideas for products, so they're only in the extraction phase.
There's a creative bankruptcy in the tech space where everybody
that's gone with the decision making moving further and further into executive space, right?
It's just top down.
It used to be that executive's job was to be like, let's get all the people who are good at being creative and coming up with stuff that's cool, right? My job is to wrangle them and make that happen, right? And now every creative decision is being made by the executive
right.
layer.
And I think what just happened with the metaverse is a perfect example of this.
Yeah.
Which a while back, when the metaverse was first being developed, years ago now, we were laughing about how they spent $15 billion developing it, and they couldn't figure out how to get legs on the avatars.
But they also couldn't figure out what it was for.
Yeah,
right?
and also, there was no coherent. And so again, it's starting with the top-down vision of like
this is Zuckerberg's metaverse you're talking about.
Zuckerberg.
The place where you would just go live in with the VR headset on your face.
Yeah, because again, it wasn't about delivering value. It wasn't about giving people something they wanted. It was about capture. It was about trying to find a way to take things from people. If you can make a platform or a space that people need to operate in, which was kind of the vision of the metaverse, was like a new digital space that has actual real estate and businesses can work there. And
yeah, because when they were saying all that stuff, they sounded like they were describing features, but what they're actually doing is describing threats, right? Which is, hey, your bank might require you to go into the metaverse to actually interact with it now.
Yeah, it's Facebook saying like, we need to create a space that we fully control that everybody will be dependent on, right? Which is that's the tech company motto. So they started with that instead of starting with an actual good idea for something that people wanted. And so they spent $15 billion in that first 6 months or whatever and flailed around. They made a big announcement. Everybody was like, what is this garbage? And then it kept going. It kept going. To date, they've spent $80 billion trying to develop this thing. And now they're shutting it down because it never worked. Because again, it's not an idea born out of passion. It's not an idea born out of something people need.
The problem is not the execution. I think that's the issue that a lot of times these people have is they're like, the idea is great. It's just a matter of we just need some more time to like bake. It just needs the technology. It's like, no. The idea is terrible. It was terrible at the start. The vision is fundamentally wrong. Like, and everybody's doing it.
The vision is market capture. The idea is market capture. The goal is money. The goal is taking as much as possible from everybody.
So
that's
annoying.
it. That's the goal of all these things. Yeah. And so I think with, and like I've heard rumblings of people being like, maybe this DLSS thing is just another indicator toward the idea that like, because there's been commentary from different tech executives over the past year about the hardware shortage, basically saying like, people don't need hardware. They can just rent it from us.
They want to move it all to cloud. That way,
right.
That way,
and like, why was cloud gaming such a big push? Why was Google trying to do Stadia? Like, why is because cloud gaming is a company basically figuring out a way to monetize every minute that you spend gaming instead of letting you own your own PC and play the game on your own, right? So it's just increasingly the case that it's been now, I don't know, probably like a decade, roughly, where like any time a new tech announcement comes out, it is only bad for you as a consumer, and it's the only goal of it is to take stuff.
Do you remember when you used to be excited about? I used to be even excited about like a new Windows announcement, right?
Yeah. Because they were delivering features.
Yeah, and even though like Windows is always janky as hell, and it's always been a fucked up company, right? But I had to use Windows every day, right? And so, and fundamentally, they were still delivering on their core promise, which is, hey, we're delivering a thing for you that largely enables the things that you're trying to do and otherwise stays out of your way. Like that's what it used to be, right? Even at their worst, and their worst was pretty bad, right? Because they still their worst was when they tried to constrain that, right? But like there was still like they were adding new stuff where I was like, oh, thank God, now I can finally do this. Like that was the kind of vibe. And I'm even thinking like even today with like Visual Studio Code, the code editor that we use in the studio. Every time patch notes came out, every month or a quarter or whatever it was, they would deliver patch notes, and I'd be like, oh fuck yeah, and I'd read through them so carefully, be like, oh yes, this thing that I've been driving me nuts.
Yeah.
Fixed.
How about now?
So happy. Right? Now it's only about
Copilot.
The model, the agent models, and like whatever. It's all the bits, and there's nothing changing at all. But the again, like product, right?
And so I a few weeks ago I just turned off Copilot, and I haven't touched it since.
And that's Copilot specifically, GitHub Copilot.
GitHub Copilot. Yeah, the thing that like
there's a branding problem there.
Yeah, the thing that kind of jumps in when you're programming and tries to help you write code, because I realized I'm just getting dumber. Like I'm having a harder time thinking through complex problems because I'm becoming dependent on this thing. I'm offloading my mental models. I'm offloading my ability even to type. Like I would start typing a little bit and then wait, and then it'd be like, how about this? It'd be tab, and then that would just fill it in with whatever with what the suggestion was. And I have an idea of what I'm trying to do, and so it's not like it's doing something that I wouldn't have gotten to on my own. Eventually, it's just I was letting it do that work instead of me doing the work, and it made me realize, like, as with all these things, the goal is dependence. Like if it's not about these tools being better programmers than people, which they are not, right? No. It's about convincing enough people at the utility of these things that a large swath of the software engineering profession becomes dependent on these tools and cannot program
Cannot
without them,
code without a third party.
right?
Yep.
So it's the same as cloud gaming. It's the same as like, hey, you don't need a gaming PC, rent one from us. Hey, you don't need a fucking brain.
Mm-hmm. Rent one
Whenever
from us.
whenever you need to think, whenever you need to solve a problem, that'll be $20 a
Don't
month.
even try.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so I'm like,
Yeah.
this is, I think
because there's some very fuzzy line between being like, okay, I know exactly what I need to do, and there's this really tedious thing, right, where it's like, oh, I got to convert all this and just like type all this crap.
Yeah, and then I just can definitely do, right?
Yeah,
And I know I can definitely do.
yeah, it's like there'll be time savings, good, seems like a clear use case, but then like it's a blurry line, so it's like you start moving it up the chain.
you start
where it's like,
convincing
well,
yourself that more and more problems are those types of problems when they're not. And so yeah, I've been going back through and I realized like when I turn it off for the first week, especially, like my hands were hurting because I had not actually been typing that much, you know. And there were problems where I would run into where I was pretty sure that, like, you know, that for this particular problem, because it's the type of problem that comes up a lot in various projects, that, like, you know, Copilot would have been able to probably get close to the solution, you know, in a reasonable amount of time. But I'm just like, no, fuck it. I'm doing it because like maybe this problem is harder for me to think about now because I've been using Copilot, and you know what I mean? And,
Well, even if it's
not actually that hard of a problem.
Yep.
Yeah, even if it wasn't for that reason, if it's harder for you to think about, that's because you need to think about it so that it's not hard to think about, right? And whether or not the cause of it being hard is that you used to be able to think about it and now you can't, or you just never could. In either case, like,
you just need to think about it.
What are we doing? Yeah. The idea for when you're trying to communicate with somebody, when you're writing an email, when you're writing an article, when you're trying to talk to a computer to tell it how to do something you're trying to accomplish, which is writing code, right? In all those cases, like the process of doing it is thinking.
Mhm.
Like those are what your brain is doing, and then what you're like creating is an iterative loop that collectively is you thinking about the problem, right?
And you're getting
and
better
if you just
and better
take
at that. You know?
Yeah, and you're getting better by doing it, right? And if you just take a part of that out, if you take the writing part of it out, whether it's code or prose, right? But if you take the writing part out, you just taken away a large fraction of your actual thinking. It's just gone. And you just took it away.
Yeah. And you're putting that in the hands of somebody else who can then charge you for it. You know, people keep convincing themselves that this is a tool, and it's not a tool. It's a fucking leech. Like it's a thief. It's taking something that you had away from you permanently and then selling it back to you. Right.
Yeah,
like
it's
you
not
could have
just adding, right?
You could have written this code. You could have done all this stuff yourself, but you're letting somebody else do it. Your skills are deteriorating, and then you have to keep paying them to let you keep doing the thing, right? So,
and the way that it initially feels or can feel like a fair trade-off is like it is doing it faster. That's true,
and it will do stuff that you could not do, right?
Yeah, on occasion it'll do stuff that you couldn't do. That's also true, right?
But you could have just learned.
Yeah, exactly. so the trade-off is that you going back to being a person do it more slowly.
Yeah,
but you learn while doing it, right? And it still is a part of actual human creative expression. But this is what, like, this stuff is just such Luddite, like real Luddite stuff, right? And I keep seeing discussions come back, and people are reminding people, like, actually we call people Luddites in this derogatory way, but if you go back, it's actually a workers' rights movement, because as people shifted work to machines that were making
it was textiles, I think.
Textiles, right? Then they started to make more and more horrible demands of the people involved, right? Because now people were at the whims of these machines, and the machines never got tired. They work really fast. Now that we can make so much at such high volume, it feels even more expensive when we're not doing it, right?
Yes.
Because now because now, like, this opportunity cost problem, right? And so workers were just getting absolutely murdered by the conditions that they were working in this context. And an important piece of the whole, like, Luddite thing, right, was that their labor was no longer about making textiles, right? It was no longer about getting better at a craft that they could care about and could be proud of and represented a part of their, like, being a person, right? And instead it was about serving the very specific needs of a machine, right?
Well, and more importantly, a machine that's owned by one guy.
Yeah.
Who now gets
and
all the
so
money
and all the benefits go there, right? So that's what the Luddite movement was about, and this is literally just what's happening right now, right? With all of generative AI.
Yeah, and so the position that I've landed in, it's been interesting over these past few weeks, kind of like mentally working through this question of like whether I should be using this stuff, because I just stopped, and then as I stopped, I kind of like started getting my skills back and getting my brain back. And I think I've just kind of landed a spot where I'm just never going to touch it. I'm just never going to touch generative AI for literally any problem I have ever, because even if I think it could do it well or do it better than I can, because it's like if it can do it better than I can, that's something I could learn. Like that's a skill that I could pick up.
You mean it's just it's taking your personhood from you.
It's taking your
growth.
And in a way, I was talking with Sappy about this. I was like, I feel like this is just the movie Click, Like,
this is what it feels like,
Yeah, where it's like that movie, for those who haven't seen it, it's real fucking sad. But it's an Adam Sandler movie.
You think it's going to be, yeah.
Yeah, he gets this magic remote that he can use to just fast forward through the parts of life that he finds dull or boring or whatever. And
it's smart. It learns what things are. So like you only have to do it a couple times in a particular scenario, and then it just applies that.
It's like, every time you go to your daughter's piano recital, you just fast forward through it. So like, we'll just make sure that happens every time, right? Yep. So it's a very clear analogy to what's happening right now, which is like, the more you do it, the more it takes over, right? And pretty soon he just wakes up, and he personally has only experienced a few hours, but now he's retired. He's in his 70s. His family doesn't know him, and it's like he just skipped his whole life, right? Because it's kind of like mistaking this idea that because things are hard, because things are challenging, because they take time, that's a problem, and you need to figure out how to not do them, as opposed to
it's a problem under the demand for constant growth, right? That's why,
right?
That's why every executive down decision, because that's always going to favor growth over anything else, right? And so because of the idea,
but not your growth
of
their growth, profit growth, right?
Profit growth, right? Yeah. And so the idea that like, hey, this stuff can generate a lot of code, right? Way faster than people can. That is true, and will only ever be more true because people have a finite, limited speed, right? But that's again misunderstanding what the point is. The point is not speed. The point is only speed if it has to be, because like if you don't get this thing out, you're out of money and now you can't do it at all, right? But if that's the space that we're occupying, where now everything has to be that fast in order to accomplish it.
I mean, I think to me the most damning thing about it is if you just look around, if you're not looking at the AI companies in terms of growth, has there been a tremendous productivity boom?
Yes.
Because the coding tools have been out.
Have all the products you use gotten better? Has Windows gotten more stable?
Yeah. These tools have been out for like 3-4 years now.
Yeah, and ultimately the core problem is, as you're saying, it's because it's causing de-skilling, and it's also causing executives to remove skilled people, right? And I think most importantly of all, it's changing skilled people's work to be the people making the thing, to now be the people reviewing large volumes of stuff that got made, right?
Yeah.
Which is a different kind of job. You can't continue learning while doing it, which means people get worse at it over time. And it's also not what anybody wanted to be doing, right? So,
and
you see this like
actually in a lot of ways too. There's been
it's slower because now if now your job is to say like, okay, well now I've got 100 pull requests made by robots, where previously I would have had 2 made by colleagues that I could take time carefully evaluating, right? And I would have a few of my own because I was also coding, right? And now instead you're reviewing 100 pull requests made by robots who don't, and the robots don't care about volume, right? Because they're not, as in like, they're not trying to make code efficiently.
They're just
because they're operating under the same principle that executives operate under, which is, hey, more code faster is better, right? And so the volume of stuff that you're dealing with is incredibly high, and this is now what people's job is, right? And the only possible outcome of that is stuff degrades.
It's just bad code. Yeah, things happening too fast.
Yeah. My point is like, given where the tools are, they're at a point where, like from an efficiency standpoint, if there was going to be ushered in a more utopic era, you would be seeing it.
You'd be seeing the start of it, but
already. But it certainly is not fucking happening. And so maybe not.
Yeah. Well, and also importantly, if these AIs were actually smart and actually could reason and could, come up with things that people can't do, then the companies that make the AI models would be producing all kinds of incredible products.
I'm still
They
amused
think
every
so.
time I hear about OpenAI is using this third party analytics service. I'm like,
can't they just yeah. Why are
That's
they
funny.
using
That's a
any
big one.
service by anybody, right? Like,
Yeah.
why do
Why
they
would
have
they buy any? Why are they buying companies? So strange.
why? Yeah, like you can just see the
Micro tools.
hypocrisy of it by just like go to look at Anthropic. They're hiring software engineers. Why?
Yeah.
Because the AI can't fucking code.
when all of them seem to be operating under the idea that this is all that part is temporary still, right? It doesn't they all seem to believe that they're moving to a place where they won't need to. But until then, we still unfortunately got to have all these people who know what they're doing.
The thing is, even if they're right, I don't care. I'm not
exactly.
using
Yeah, that's not the world I want to live in.
Because I want to live an interesting life where I'm learning and growing and facing challenges and solving interesting problems. And if every time something is a slight inconvenience, I just hand it off to a robot
who does a bad job,
who does a kind of a crappy job, but at least it's done now, right? Then what am I here for? Like what's the point?
Yeah, I think in that personal thing is there, right? But I know for me, it's like that's all just true. Also, the thing that makes me the most mad of all of it, though, is when robots talk to me as if they're people.
Yes.
Because it's also always on behalf of some person. Somebody made that decision to have a robot talk to me, right? Or at least to talk to people in general, and then the robot found me to talk to, right? Either way, it's part of the whole like you're saying, the wedding vows thing, right? It's like if I discover that the content that I am reading right now, whether it's an article, right, whether it's an email, whatever it is, some art. If I discover that, that's just
you're just like,
robot
man. What a bummer.
The amount of rage I have at the person who just made me waste my time is
because
it's immeasurable.
Because it's something that nobody fucking made. Like nobody wrote it. Yeah, I'll be watching a YouTube video or something. It'll pop up and be like, oh, this sounds like an interesting topic, and I'll start listening, and it's like, oh, this sounds like an AI generated voiceover. I'm out. I'm immediately turning off because I'm like, this is nothing. Nobody thought of this. Nobody's saying anything. This is just. It just exists. Yeah,
because the whole point of all this is supposed to be to communicate something. Yeah, and if there isn't a person involved, no communication is happening. Like this.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
It's the there was that this YouTuber, I think it's like Mo Bitar or something. He's a programmer and he makes videos. And he's talking about how like AI generated code is a hot dog, as opposed to cooking. Right. Mm-hmm. He's like, I'm a chef. I get into cooking. I'm making all this stuff. And then there's this new hot dog technology that comes out. And it's like, it's food. Like technically it's got the calories. It's got the protein. Like nobody really knows what's in it. And it all looks the same. And it's not even close to as appetizing as the other food that I've been making. But I can just buy a pack of hot dogs and boil them real quick. And I've got lunch,
Yeah, you can live off of them for a while.
Yeah, and it's technically food and all that, right? But it's not good. It's not, and it's just a bland, kind of soulless packaged experience, right? So, anyways, we got to probably stop this episode because this AI soapbox, it's a tall one. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. So we'll see what happens with this DLSS 5 stuff, but I imagine this isn't the end of the conversation around it, so we'll see. But that's all the time we have for this week. We'd like to thank our producers Fat Bard and Sampa DeCoster for putting the podcast together, and thanks to our community moderators who keep our Discord running. To get more involved in the Butterscotch community, just go to podcast.bscotch.net, where we have links to the Discord, a way for you to donate to support the podcast, and links to the archives. And like I said before, we'll be at PAX East, so if you're in the area, shoot us a message. Maybe we'll see you around. But otherwise, just head on over to Steam and pick up a copy of the How Many Dudes demo and have fun with that in the meantime. I would appreciate it. So thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.